What's up, YouTube? How y'all doing? It's your boy Show. Man, we're gonna talk about this Diddy case today and the legal side of it, uh, to analyze not just the sentence and the verdict, but the case from the beginning. Right? There's a lot of people who are wondering how the judge came to the decision that he came to when it comes to the sentencing, and how someone can receive a 4-year sentence for what's essentially being the customer of a prostitute, right? So those who have been actually following the case, not just following what you see on social media or the little snippets that you see on the news or the headlines, but those who actually were a part of the court proceedings or showing up to court throughout the months since the inception of the whole indictment and things like that. This case from the beginning, I believe, was racially motivated. And I know there's going to be people who are going to say, oh, here you go, guys, go playing the race card, and because you guys didn't get the verdict or the sentence that you want, you guys are always playing the race card. I know there's going to be people that are saying that, but I got to call a spade, right? Never in history, in American history, have we ever seen a public raid the way that we saw on Sean P. Diddy Combs' properties, like we did last year, right? Anyone can leave in the comments and let me know if you've ever seen a raid like that before, where someone was accused of sex trafficking, and they had to send a Homeland Security had to come and knock down their doors and put it all over TV and things like that. Never seen that before. Nonetheless, when we seen it, we knew that this was going to be something big. This wasn't ordinary, right? That's something that, the way that they went at Diddy's house is a way that you would imagine that SEAL Team 6 went looking for Osama bin Laden or something like that, right? And if you've been following this man's career for the last 30 years or whatnot, this guy was never seen to be a mafia boss or a drug dealer or a cartel member or anything like that. He was a music mogul. We all watched it, right? So there was nothing that gave us the vibe that Diddy had an army of armed guards walking around with him, that you needed to bring that much force. But when we saw that, you knew this was something big. And even though nothing great was found, what's up, Penn? SEAL Team wanted them baby oils, right? SEAL Team wanted the baby oils. Now, and I'm gonna get to that. I'm glad you reminded me about that baby oil. Never in history have we seen them make a big deal of something like that. Even with Osama bin Laden, we never saw no videos. It wasn't broadcasted over the news or on TV like that. So that kind of lets you know that something was up, right? This is something bigger than usual. It's very, very unusual. All right. But anyway, that should have told Diddy, of course, that look, man, these people are coming at you. Something is coming. You got to get out of the way. But he didn't. He stuck around because maybe in his mind, he felt that he hadn't committed any crime that was worthy of all that. There was no reason for him to flee, because in his mind, he didn't commit any crime. He never, there was nothing that he did that warranted that, to have guns put to his children's head. And anybody with at least a little bit of a heart could agree to that, right? So fast forward a few months later, you know that you're being investigated and an indictment is coming soon, which we found out later that Diddy's attorneys kind of warned him. And at the time, Mark Agnifilo was probably um, the main attorney that he had. He's still a lead attorney, but he was basically the only man that he had speaking on his behalf, right? So Agnifilo tells him, look, Diddy, I used to be a prosecutor. I have some connections still at the Southern District of New York. I know some people in the FBI and all this. Usually when a raid like this happens, next there's an indictment that's gonna come, whether they found anything or not. Now, what did they put all over the news, all over the internet? They showed these pictures of baby oil. We found massive amounts of baby oil, 1,000 bottles of baby oil, and we found guns and we found drugs and this and that. So from the jump, they made it seem like it was something much. This was huge. This was going to be the biggest case in American history. The biggest. Sean P. Diddy Combs was the biggest criminal that America has ever seen, right? So what they did was they started putting out propaganda all over the internet saying that this baby oil was laced with drugs. We found a bunch of drugs in the man's home. We found all these guns, and we have 2,000 terabytes of videos. We have all of these electronic devices. We've confiscated laptops. We got tapes with celebrities on them. So everybody's thinking, oh my God, this guy Diddy is recording people committing all kinds of acts in his houses. He's having these sex parties. He's having these all kind of debauchery going on with all of these celebrities. Anybody who was a celebrity that was associated with Diddy was now part of the Diddy tapes and the Diddy parties, right? So everybody backed up from him and didn't want to be seen close to him, right? So what you do in America, if you want to get somebody convicted in a court of law, the best thing to do first is to get them convicted in the court of public opinion. This is a tactic that's been used since America was started, since they had the press, right? All you had to do was put something in the newspaper, and the average person that's reading it, they're not thinking to question whether it's true or not, because they have nothing else to counter act with their reading. So whatever you show them, that's what they believe. And it's been like that for a long time, right? So Diddy got convicted in the court of public opinion. People were thinking the worst. Finally, he gets indicted. He gets notification that he's going to be indicted. His attorney calls him and says, hey, I think you should come back to New York now because it's getting close and I think that indictment is coming. Diddy goes from Miami back to New York. When he gets to New York, he has the intentions of turning himself in to the federal authorities because he knows he's about to be arrested and indicted. He said, look, you don't have to come look for me. I didn't do anything wrong. I haven't raped anybody. I haven't killed anybody. I'm not some dope dealer. I'm not a criminal. So you don't have to come look for me. I'm going to come and turn myself in. So Diddy is preparing to turn himself in, but the night before he does so, federal authorities storm his hotel room and they in the hotel lobby. They snatch him up in a hotel lobby and they say, nah, we got you. Diddy, just come with us. They didn't want to give him the opportunity to turn himself in, because had he turned himself in, it would have shown people that, hey, he's not a flight risk. So why not give him bail? But the plan was already set in motion to take him, incarcerate him, strip him down of everything that he's had, everything that he worked for, take away everything, right? So that was the beginning of it. Make it seem like he's a flight risk because the man has his own plane. And this goes to another thing that people have to be careful of. When you are a minority and you reach a certain level of success, you have to know that you have a target on your back. It is, first of all, not the average person doesn't have their own private plane. For somebody like a person who doesn't have a college education, person who's not a big time CEO of a Fortune 500 company, didn't go to Harvard and all these kind of places, for you to have a plane, this is extraordinary. And people don't like that. If you're one of these people who come from nothing and you just make yourself into something, you become like this mogul, this billionaire, and then you're on Forbes magazine, you're on MTV, you're getting keys to the city. It just seems like you're winning a little bit too much and you're winning too easily, right? DJ Khaled would say suffering from success, right? So Diddy gets arrested. He gets brought down to the federal jailhouse for arraignment. His attorney, he gets the charges. They read off the charges to him. Initially, it was a RICO charge. As soon as we heard RICO, everybody knew that this doesn't even sound right. Now, mind you, I forgot to mention that the Cassie tape that came out, back, I believe it was in March or April or something like that of last year. That tape was pushed out all over the world, all through social media. It was played on TV 1,000 times a day, and it soaked in people's minds that, damn, this guy Diddy that we thought we knew, we find out, damn, there's another side to Diddy. Diddy looked like he got a little bit of some gorilla in him, right? Which is a side that, you really didn't see that much. But that was the narrative, right? We had no context. We didn't know what happened before the tape, what happened after. We only saw that one little part, but that was enough to say, hey man, what the hell are you doing? You stomped this girl, you yoked her up, and you're abusing your girlfriend. At that point, it made it easy for the government to put out any kind of accusations about him, and people are just gonna believe it, right? Same thing with any of us. If you take something that somebody did, a crime, and you blast it all over the media everywhere, now anybody, it's open season on you. People can say anything about you and it's gonna be believed, right? So that was the beginning. No matter what came out, people are gonna say he did it, even if he didn't. Now go back to the arraignment. When the charges were read, you heard about guns, you heard about drugs. He didn't tell you how much drugs or how many guns. They didn't tell you that in the United States that every citizen has a Second Amendment constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Anybody in the United States, as long as you're a citizen and you don't have a felony, you can buy as many guns as your state allows. If your state allows you to buy, you're able to get 2 pistols per month and a couple long guns, you can do that if you have the money. There's nothing illegal about that. In fact, those of you who are pro Second Amendment, when you go down to the South, buying a gun is easier than buying a cell phone, right? So it's not a crime to own a firearms, but yet they made it seem like it was a crime, right? Now, as far as the drugs go, they never told you how much drugs it was. So the average person is going to be thinking like, man, this guy has a plane. This guy has the ability to move things around. He must be moving kilos. They didn't tell you that the amount of drugs was just personal use, right? So all of this propaganda is floating around. All these people got stories. You got all these lawsuits coming out. They got Diddy looking like the devil, really. But out of all of that, you never heard that there was any murders involved. You never heard that, oh, Diddy killed somebody, or they found a body here, or we found text messages of him putting out a hit on somebody or something like that. You never heard anything like that. Even in the indictments and the charges, you didn't hear anything about crimes being committed against children or anything that had anything to do with like pedophilia or something like this. I gotta watch my mouth on YouTube. But nothing like that came out, right? But it was floating on the internet, so it was in a lot of people's minds. The day of the arraignment, Diddy's team offers up a $50 million bail. $50 million bail. Now, how many times in history have you ever heard of somebody paying $50 million bail? Never. Nobody's ever been even required to pay $50 million bail, except in one case. There was a guy named Robert Durst, who was a billionaire. And Robert Durst was accused of murder, and a judge in Texas, because of the seriousness of the case and because of Robert Durst's vast wealth, the judge set his bail at $3 billion. That $3 billion was supposed to assure that Robert Durst didn't run away, because he had a vast amount of wealth. But nobody's ever been required to pay that much, because that bail requirement got appealed by Robert Durst's legal team, and it went from $3 billion all the way down to about $450,000, if my memory is correct. So Robert Durst, who was accused of murder, got a $500,000 bail. Sean Combs, who was not charged with murder, got denied bail with no amount of money, right? No murder, no evidence of moving drugs with a cartel or anything like that, hiring hits, or none of that was in the indictment, right? But yet he was denied bail. That right there told me that there's something else behind this. This is not normal. They're not gonna just let him go. He's not gonna get a fair trial. From the jump, if anybody was paying attention, you knew he wasn't gonna get a fair trial. So what do we say? We say, okay, if the judge denied that much bail, the judge must know something. Even though the trial hasn't started, the judge must have some kind of way to justify not giving this man bail. There's people who have killed people. We all know somebody who's either killed or been killed, and even murderers get a bail. But Diddy didn't get a bail. Can someone really justify that? That was number one, why I think this was definitely a racial prosecution, and Diddy was targeted for the fact they didn't give him a bail, even though he offered up $50 million more than any murderer. Donald Trump himself got charged, he had 34 charges, 34 convictions actually, and was out on bail, was allowed to run for president of the United States. And we see where he is now, because he had a bail. Now, when the first judge that had the case denied Diddy bail, the second judge denied him bail. They recused him, and then the case went to Aaron Submaranian, who ended up being the trial judge. Now, when Submaranian got the case, it was clear that he was being used as a cat's paw. He may not have been the one who made the initial decisions of whether he was going to get bail or not, but he wanted to keep in form with the previous rulings, right? The first judge denied a bail, the second judge is going to deny it. The third judge doesn't want to go against the first two, because then that's going to say, hey, the first two judges were wrong. Judges rarely overturn another judge's decision. Yes, you have some instances where there is an appeal and things that overturn on appeal, but those are the very minority, those are not the majority of the cases, right? So Diddy gets denied bail again. He has to sit until trial. Anybody who's ever been in the system before, you know how difficult it is to fight a case when you are incarcerated. Fighting a case while in prison, while in jail, is almost impossible to win, because there's a lot of evidence that you may not be able to get your hands on that can help to exonerate you. Everything that you need to help you, you have to tell your lawyer where to find it. Hey, you have to go here and go look in my back room and move this box open. There's another box that you have to open, and there I have some documents or something like that. So you have to send other people to go get things that might help your case. But if you ain't, and that's very difficult to do, especially if you don't have money. Fortunately for Sean Combs, we all know that he had the resources to be able to pay a defense to go and research the things that he needed to research, whether you got to get private investigators or you have to get people to just go and get things for you. Maybe go get old cell phones that have text messages in it, or go and find old laptops that have video evidence in it. Maybe something that the feds didn't take, because when the feds come and take your devices, the first thing that they're gonna do is connect it to their machines, their computers, and try to extract everything that you've done on that phone. Every call that you've made, every picture you've taken, every video that you've recorded, every app you've downloaded, an email that you've sent. Your phones, these smartphones, record all of that. Even when you try to delete these things, there's a little bit of metadata that stays on your phone that with the right software, you can still get some remnants of it, right? There's still some pieces of a photo that you took that you thought you deleted. There's still numbers in there, text messages. So the feds do this. But what they also do is when they take these things from you, anything that you have that can maybe exonerate you or make their job difficult and getting you convicted, they're gonna destroy that. So this is another reason why when you are investigated by the feds or targeted by the feds, it's nearly impossible to win. Not 100% impossible, but about 99% of people who go up, have the feds come against them, the outcome is not going to go in your favor. So Diddy had to go up against all of that. He had Mark Agnifilo was his lead attorney. I had a conversation with him on this day that Diddy got his first his bail got denied, right? And I told Mr. Agnifilo, I said, man, look, you're not gonna be able to do all of this on your own. I can see what's going on now. You're going up against the United States government. The United States government is coming after you, and they have unlimited resources. They have control over the media, social media, Facebook, and all of that. All they have to do is go and start posting stuff, and boom, public opinion is coming for your neck, you know? So you're gonna need help. Are you gonna hire some other legal experts and put them on your team? And Agnifilo, I can understand he couldn't disclose the strategy and the plan out in the open, but I just wanted to see if he was on his job, because I didn't like what I saw going on right there. I really thought that the denial of bail was extremely unfair, and I felt that it had to be racially motivated. It had to be, because what other reason was there? When you have murderers who are given bail, people who are accused of murder get bail, but a guy who's being accused of domestic violence, sex crimes, or trafficking is denied bail. That just didn't. What's going on, Tech? That just didn't make sense to me, right? So what other reason would you have to deny his bail? Nobody ever came out with that. The only thing they could say is that this guy was a danger to the public. What public? You have one person accusing him of assault, and actually this Cassie Ventura never even called the cops on Diddy. All of the years that they were together, never, not once did she ever call the cops on him. We never saw any police reports. Jane Doe, which a lot of people are saying was 50 Cent's baby mother, Daphne Joy, we don't have any, we haven't heard of any times for her to call the police. So it's definitely rigged. We didn't hear anybody called the police. All of these people who came out later and said, oh, he did this to me, he did that. How come none of them called the police at any time? But all of them kind of like, after Cassie filed that lawsuit, all of them had their hand out like, hey, he did something to me, let me file this lawsuit. Well, why y'all wait till right now? That's just what I want to know. I understand they say some victims and people take a while to come out, but that doesn't strike me as a victim. Somebody who's been in a relationship with somebody for 10 years and you keep coming back. You said that this person is victimizing you, but yet you keep going back when you could have easily left. You know, you could have left. You could have went somewhere. You could have went into hiding. You could have went and sought help, but you didn't. Now, I'm not gonna go too hard on that, because I'm sure that there are some people out there in the world who are caught up in some kind of abusive situation, or they're caught up in some kind of oppressive situation where they can't get out, right? But that wasn't the case here. We never heard anything about Diddy chaining anybody, handcuffing anybody, locking them in the basement or something like that. So I don't want to hear that you couldn't get away. And I think that's why the jury rejected ultimately any accusation. I think that's why they rejected those big RICO charges, because they concluded that these women were not held hostage, right? Okay, we're gonna go back to Judge Submaranian and why I think that Submaranian is prejudiced and biased against Diddy. I'm not gonna say that he's biased against all people of all minorities in America or all black people in America, but we do know that Judge Submaranian is of East Indian descent. And we know, anybody who's been to India, and I've been there a couple times, and don't get me wrong, I've met some good Indians, and I have some who I consider to be friends. But we do know that typically when you come across Indians, Indians don't like black people. Darker skinned people are definitely treated badly and unfair in India, and they're looked down upon, right? Judge Submaranian is a first generation born in America. So you know his parents came over here with that mindset that, you know, in order to, you have to get along to get along, you know what I'm saying? You have to go along to get along and follow a certain path. Now, the guy is educated, you know, his parents definitely set him up to be smart and go to some of the best schools. He ended up going to Columbia. So you guys kind of know what kind of people go to these kind of schools, how they become, who they're around, and how they think, right? Somebody who goes to Columbia, one of these kind of schools, is not like somebody who goes to Howard University or Grambling, one of these places like that. You guys know what I'm saying. So, Diddy, a college dropout, becomes a music mogul, fashion mogul, gets into the liquor business, and becomes a billionaire. College dropout becomes a billionaire. That alone is gonna cause some envy. And you came from nothing and you made yourself into a billionaire, and these people are spending their lives studying, reading, just putting school first, and they're just hitting the books all the time, trying to get the best grades so they can get out and be excellent and get into a profession where they make a lot of money. But you drop out of school and you become a billionaire, your black ass, oh man, that rubs people the wrong way. And it's another thing that I want to say is that if you are black and you make a lot of money, stay off that Forbes list. Stay off that Forbes list. Yes, it's a great accomplishment. Yes, you want to be able to say that you made it out. You made it from poverty. You made it out the hood. Now, mama, I made it. We made it to Forbes. No, stay off that Forbes list. Your black ass. Stay off the Forbes list because you're going to become a target. Okay? So, there's a lot of jealousy there. Diddy has no bail. He's fighting his every step of the way. They made it difficult for him. While he was being held at the MDC in Brooklyn, they were conducting raids, just random raids out of nowhere on his cell. They were taking pictures of his legal notes, his defense notes, everything that he had that he was using to prepare for his case. The feds wanted to see it. Why? Because so that way they can get ahead of him and block it. So if Diddy wrote on the paper, okay, I need my attorney to go talk to this person because this person might be able to do this. Or, okay, this person is upset at me because they feel like I owe them some money or they want some money from me. Go and pay this person. Go and get, she's having a hard time here. Go give her $100,000. Diddy was trying to buy goodwill, so to speak, which is not illegal. You know, they might try to say that this is bribery or witness intimidation, which is how the prosecution framed it. They framed it as bullying and witness intimidation, which is basically what the feds do. They come to your house, they show up 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 deep. They got guns. You're going to tell them what they want to hear most of the time. Not necessarily the truth, but you're going to tell them what they want to hear just to keep the pressure off you. And they made it clear to everyone that we want you to cooperate with us because we're going to take this guy Combs down. And if you don't cooperate with us, you going down with him, right? So that made people fall in line. Anybody who had a relationship with Diddy or was in some kind of, sexual relationship with him or whatever, they made that person into a victim. Even if that person themselves didn't see themselves as victim, they just seen themselves as being in a relationship or being in a open relationship, because you can't be in a monogamous relationship with somebody like that because, when men have a lot of money, you guys know most of the time he's probably going to have multiple women. That's just what it is. I don't care who you are, white, black, Asian, it's just what it is. Very few people who are wealthy, men who are wealthy only have one woman. And that's not in our nature anyway, right? So, especially men who are of African descent, because in Africa, it's always been a thing where men can have multiple wives. That thing is stuck with us even as we migrated over here to the United States over the centuries and this and that, right? You can have up to 4 wives if you can afford them. A man only having one wife, that's something that was implemented in especially through slavery and through Christianity, through the brainwashing in America. But black men just genetically, biologically, never felt like, oh, I can only have one woman. That's a European thing, a Christian thing, right? So that kind of so these people who were I don't want to say brainwashed, but coerced into thinking that they were victims, had to go and cooperate with the feds. And what they do is when they come and pick you up, when these federal prosecutors come and pick you up, they kind of give you a script. They ask you a bunch of questions, you tell them, and then they try to frame it in a way that fits the charges that they're trying to put against the person, right? So if they charge this man with sex trafficking, right? Sex trafficking will involve a victim. But what if the person got on a plane willingly? What if they crossed over state lines willingly, right? It's not a crime. But in order to make that crime stick, they have to tell the person, look, did he ever put his hands on you? Yes. Oh, okay. Did you ever go from one state to another? Yes. Did you ever take drugs with him? Yes. They don't say, hey, you were partying, y'all were having a good time. They just making it seem like this person made you do all of these things, right? So they start telling you, yeah, you're a victim. Don't worry, we're gonna get justice for you. So now you're in a situation where you're like, damn, I never felt like a victim, but they're saying that I'm a victim, and they're telling me that I have to go and testify against him. What am I going to do? He's locked up. He can't help me, and they're telling me I have to do this. So what they do is they have these, what they call trial prep, where they bring their witnesses in and they ask them these questions over and over and over, so that way they can remember I don't want to say script, but I'll say the narrative. You were abused. You were a victim. You didn't like when he did that. You never put your hands on him. He only put his hands on you, right? So they'll tell a one-sided story. This is the Fed's job, right? So that was how the case started. So everything was stacked against him. But as Agnifilo started to build the defense team was able to kind of like go out and find a counter to everything that the feds were putting against Diddy. The feds are so used to winning that in their minds, everything is an automatic win. The moment they call for an investigation or the arrest of somebody, they usually already have the case lined up, because they know the average person doesn't have the resources to fight, and most people don't want to fight the feds. That's why they put the sentencing guidelines so high. So they'll say, okay, look, we're the feds. If you lose against us, which there's a 97% chance that you will lose, you're going to get 50 years. Most people, or a lot of people who might be innocent of those particular charges, they look at it and they say, okay, what's my risk reward? What's the chances of me actually beating this case? And most of the time, their lawyer going to tell them, like, man, it's the feds. I don't think we could do it if nobody beats the feds. So you might as well just go ahead and just plead guilty to this 10 years, because if you lose, they're going to give you 30. And you have this witness against you, you have this person against you, they've got that, they've got this. So most people cave and they don't even fight the case. Only about 3% of cases go to trial in the feds. 3%. The rest of them all get pled out. People just fold. They're like, okay, I can't win. You guys too big. It's the weight of the United States government is against me. I can't beat it. So they plead out. That's another reason why they have such a high conviction rate. Now, Diddy is one of the few people in America who has the resources to challenge accusations from the United States government. One of the few. Maybe it's less than 1% who actually have the resources to say, okay, I'll go to trial because I didn't do this. So Diddy starts to mount a defense. The whole time, social media, television, they're all slandering him, chopping him down. They're showing the video over and over and over again. Diddy did this to me. All lawsuits are coming out. Diddy did that to me. He did that. The baby oil was spiked. He had massive amounts of drugs. He had kids tied up underneath his house. He did this. He did that. All of this is going on now. Being that he's locked up, he can't come out and get on social media. He can't go on do an interview and say, look, no, that's not true. That's not what happened. This is what really happened. He can't clarify any of that. So the media, the government is just having their way with his image. They've already convicted him. I've never seen anything like this. The only thing that comes close to the type of media storm that was sent on Diddy is maybe Bill Cosby. I think that Diddy was maybe went a little bit worse, but Bill Cosby had a hell of a propaganda campaign against him. I would say Bill Cosby. I don't even know if the proper campaign against Michael Jackson was that bad, but I do remember, no, it had to be bad with Michael Jackson too, because they actually charged him with the child thing. But and maybe Osama bin Laden, You know, those are the only times that I remember a story being so big and charges and somebody being hunted. But this Diddy thing was the biggest. Oh, OJ too. Pardon me. You had OJ. Okay? But here's what people, what's up, Kay? Kayla? So this was the case. He oppressed her with abuse and threats, in my opinion. Okay, Diddy should never get, okay, it's your opinion. So, and look, that opinion that you have, Bella the Bell, I don't know if you're still here, but that opinion that you have is a pretty widespread opinion. You're not the only one with that opinion. But the reason why you have that opinion is because of the information that was put out in the media. And what you, unless you went to the trial, you're gonna think that. We get to that a little bit later. So it's understandable that you think that, and that's exactly what the feds do. They use the media to put a certain narrative into people's heads. So if somebody like you gets picked to be a juror, you're already going in there thinking that the person is guilty. And that's another thing about the feds. If you ever get a federal charge, the reason why you know that you have so much against you, you have to have a great defense team. You have to have an extraordinary defense team, because the average person that is sitting at the defendant's table in a federal case, people are already thinking that you're guilty because they can't imagine that the United States would spend money on trying somebody who didn't at least do something. So they would think that, oh, if the United States Attorney General came out, or if the prosecutor stood up and charged you with this crime, you must be guilty, because they don't make mistakes. Prosecutors don't make mistakes. Judges don't make mistakes. These people are robots. They're superhuman. They're super smart. These people go to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and all these schools. They don't make mistakes. So that is the thought of the average person. So the prosecutors in this case were, you already knew something was up when you saw that the prosecutors were all women. There were 6 female prosecutors, right? Diddy's team did a good thing. I'm not saying that they put women on the team just because they were women, because all of the women defense attorneys that Diddy had are extraordinary. They're extraordinary. But it was important to have some women to advocate for him, to show that he can be a gentleman around women, and that there were some women to stick up for him. Most importantly, what Diddy needed was Caucasian female attorneys too, because you're going up against a whole row of female attorneys. You can't have men, and you also got to be careful about having men cross-examining female witnesses and whatnot, right? Okay, so trial starts. Diddy's sitting in jail for all this time. No, before the trial starts, sorry. And back in December last year, there was a pre-trial hearing about when the trial would start. Judge Submaranian knows he's holding Diddy in jail. And everybody knows that it's never a good thing to hold somebody in jail when you don't know if they're guilty or not. In America, they say you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, right? Diddy wasn't proven guilty, but yet he was treated like he was guilty by denying him bail, which I believe it has to be against some kind of constitutional right or something like this. I hope that his attorneys will look into that, but it had to be, right? Because as I said before, you have people who have murdered people who got bail. This guy didn't get any bail, right? And you notice, you ever look on the news, almost every week there's somebody that gets exonerated after spending 20, 30 years in prison for a crime that they didn't commit. And DNA evidence shows, hey, yeah, we thought that this person did it back in the day. We charged him, a jury convicted him, of this murder. All the evidence seemed to be pointing at him. We all thought he was guilty at the time, but the DNA is saying he didn't do it, right? That goes to show you that these prosecutors are human. They are flawed. The judges are flawed. The jurors could be swayed a certain way by the jury instructions, because the judge can write the jury instructions in a certain way that make the jury have to make a certain decision. This is where the judges come into play, where a judge could become like a secondary jury, or the judge could become a member of the prosecution's team without appearing to be a member of the prosecution's team. This is something that people have to understand, these dynamics. You can't just say, oh, the judge is fair because he made a ruling for this side and they made one for that side too. You have to be able to see that the judge most likely was a prosecutor one time, because most judges were former prosecutors, so they think like prosecutors. Most judges also have it in their mind that if a defendant is in front of them, that he's guilty. So a lot of the rulings that they make is with that in mind, that this person is guilty, but they have to give the appearance of being fair. And everybody knows what I'm talking about when you have to choose between two, and sometimes you don't want to seem like you're leading one way or the other. So you have to appear that you're fair, but you know in the end you're going to be leaning towards this way, right? This is what we saw with Judge Submarinian in the Diddy case. Okay, so as the trial, once the trial started, so Diddy is sitting in jail. They set the trial for, it was supposed to start in May. Why did they set the trial so far ahead? Why was it 5 months away from this pre-trial hearing in December? Oh, so both sides can get their things right? Wait a minute. If you're the United States government, you've been investigating this guy for 15 years. You've been following him for 20 years. You're supposed to have your case already ready. The moment that you arrest somebody, your case should be ready. Why do you, if you've been doing all of this extensive investigating, why do you need to stretch it out? Why? Because they had no case. They really had no case against Diddy. And I'm going to tell you, as somebody who was going to a lot of these court proceedings, I missed a good amount of the trial, so I'll put that out there. But I was there on the verdict day. Mark Agnafilo, you know, we would chit-chat here and there. Mr. Xavier Donaldson, who's an excellent attorney, man. One of the guys I really, admire how this guy moves around in the courtroom. But the government had no case against Diddy. The only thing they had was a domestic violence video with him and Cassie. They had a little bit of drugs that were like personal use, which probably should have been in state court. He had enough drugs where he probably could have finished it all in one day, you know, with no problem. Guns is a American constitutional right. As long as you don't have any felonies, you can own as many guns as you want to, right? So that's not a crime, but they made it all seem like it was a crime. And they convicted him in the court of public opinion, like I said before. But finally, trial starts. We come to find out that the evidence that they said that they had, all of these victims, weren't really victims. You come to find out that these people were all willing participants, right? You had people thinking that Diddy was forcing Cassie and all these other women or whoever to be a part of what they call freak-offs, or these hotel nights, right? But then it comes out that these women were also arranging some of these hotel nights and these freak-offs when Diddy wasn't even around. You know, the evidence came out that Cassie was communicating with this one and that one when Diddy was nowhere to be seen. She was dating Kid Cudi. I think at some point it was something with her and Michael B. Jordan or something. couple the trainer that Diddy hired to help her, she started sleeping with him. So it came out that Cassie was a very promiscuous young woman, and I mean, it's her body, her choice. She can sleep with whoever she wants to, but Diddy was nowhere around when those escapades were going on. So it clearly showed that she had the freedom and the free will and the mind to do whatever she wanted. But the lifestyle that she had with Diddy, none of those other people could provide. You understand what I'm saying? Diddy got private jets, or had a private jet. He had mansions. He had the ability to go and wherever he wanted, when he wanted, and eat what he wanted. And being that Cassie was like his main thing, one of his side piece, but the main one, she could come and go as she wanted to. She was living a life that most people dream of. But when she finally left him, she didn't have that anymore. The guy that she got with, the trainer, maybe she liked him, but he couldn't provide for her the same kind of life that she had with Diddy. So at times, I'm sure that she reached out to him and tried to get back with him for a little bit, or just tried to get some money out of him. And at some point he was like, no, I'm not giving you nothing because you're going to take my money and go and spend with this guy. Come on, fellas. Most of us know that you would do anything for your woman. You would give her whatever you can. But the moment you find out she's dealing with another guy, you be like, man, I'm not giving you nothing. And that's when I believe the plan was formulated with the guy she ended up with now. And this is just my opinion. I think that they sat down, they formulated a plan. They was like, we got to get him because we need some money. And I think that from what I know, the type of people that I've been around, and I've seen women think like this, where she probably was like, you know what? Okay. She probably was sitting down telling them the things that she used to do with him, and the guy told her, look, wow, you're a victim. I think you're a victim. You need to tell somebody, or you need to sue him or something. That's how the whole lawsuit came about. Because if you listen to this testimony, you read the transcripts of Cassie in court, it doesn't seem like she hate Diddy, in my opinion, based off of the things that I heard. It seems like she still have a soft spot in her heart for him, and she didn't want him to go to prison. That's just my opinion. That's the opinion of certain other people. But she had to follow the script because she filed the lawsuit. The feds came and picked her up. Once the feds got her, it's either, Cassie, you're just as complicit because you're the one who paid for these male escorts. You're the one who picked these male escorts, even when he wasn't around. So you're kind of complicit in this whole thing too. But because we want him, we're going to give you immunity and you are the victim, right? The domestic violence things. We want to know about all of these things. All of the times that you and him got into scraps and fights and you never called the police on him. We want to know about all of that, and we're going to package that up into a case, and we're going to put his black ass in jail forever, and we're going to take everything you want because we just don't like this motherfucker just living the life that he wants and flaunting and being on TV, getting all these awards and being celebrated the way that he's being celebrated. And we had to go to school and we're working. We don't get to do that. We don't get to do that. We don't get to party and have fun and get drunk and sleep with whoever we want to sleep with and be fawned over. So yeah, we're gonna go after his ass. So Cassie had to go along with the plan whether she wanted to or not. And also, she married now, and with kids, so even if she did have a soft spot in her heart for him, how would that make the husband feel? So you're stuck now. So she gotta go with it. It's like, look, I just gotta go. And now she got the lawyer too that's behind her, that's pushing her. Probably wrote all of those letters for her to the judge and on her behalf. you know, to say, hey, Your Honor, this guy is a danger. I'm scared. Keep him locked up. So the judge is getting this. The judge already don't like him. He denied him bail already, and he's just trying. They're just going through a process because in their minds he's already guilty, and which the judge is already thinking about the sentencing. The judge, from the beginning of the case, the judge was not thinking in his mind, I wonder if this guy is innocent or guilty. No, the judge was already convinced that he was guilty. The only thing the judge was thinking about was, how much time am I going to give this black motherfucker? How much time am I going to give him? And what he did was, there was one juror that was, I forget, I believe it was maybe juror number 6 or something like this. And they said he fit the profile of somebody who may have been a hip hop fan, maybe somebody who possibly was a fan of Diddy, right? They found out that this guy, although he was from the Bronx, what's up, Lion King? Although this guy was supposedly from the Bronx, he had been going back and staying in New Jersey where his kid was or something like this. And at some point while he was at the court, maybe he showed up a little bit late, or he had a conversation with somebody and said, hey, yeah, I've been staying in Jersey. That person went and said something, and it got back to the prosecutors, because keep in mind, with a case like this, with somebody like Diddy, has a lot of money, he could make things happen. Diddy, you know, when you got money, you could tell the person that's about to testify against you, like, hey, look, man, look, they trying to bury me. Look, put $100,000 in his mailbox. Put $200,000. Please don't show up to court, man. It ain't. Don't do this to me. If it's money you want, I'll give you some money, man. Somebody look on your back porch. It's a $100,000 in that bag. So what they were doing, I'm sure the feds were following some of these jurors, keeping close tabs on these jurors to make sure that nobody dropped a bag of money off to them, so there was no acquittal. And like I said, this guy, he come from the generation who probably, you know, definitely looked up to Diddy. A lot of people looked up to Diddy, man. I don't understand why people try to act like, oh, we always knew he was bad and this and that. No. Don't do that now. Most of us, a lot of people looked up to Diddy in some way, shape, or form, whether it was business, whether it was fashion, or whether it was his talent, his abilities to put together good music, his ability to dance. Everybody admired something about Diddy, unless you were just a flat square that had no kind of rhythm to you. You didn't like music. You're just a miserable human being that has nothing going on for yourself, or you're just a flat out racist. That's the only kind of people who didn't like Diddy, you know, or like admire something about Diddy, and you know what I mean, especially if you're from New York, that area. Okay, so this juror number 6, they found out that he's not staying in the city, and the rules are, yeah, we have to pick jurors from the Southern District of New York, which I don't think is right. You should be able to pick, if this is the United States court, federal court, jurors should be able to come from anywhere, really, you know. And if you want to just keep it into a region, it should be in a region. Wherever the defendant is from, you should be able to pluck jurors from that area too. If you say that it's a jury of the peers, the government should be required. And if there's anybody that's in the feds or in the government or Congress that's watching this right now, please implement this. Jurors should be able to come from wherever that defendant comes from, if that or wherever that defendant resides. If that defendant is a United States citizen, if he comes from, for example, Washington, D.C. or Maryland, then the juror should be able to come from there. You should be able, and you're going to try him in New York, we'll be able to bring some jurors from where he's from. Maybe they have a better understanding of the environment of where this person comes from. But the federal system is not designed to be fair. The federal system is designed to railroad you and send your ass to prison, to make you bow down. And because the United States doesn't never want to look like it's wrong, even though the United States can be wrong about a lot of things, they will never want to admit to being wrong and never want to be embarrassed embarrassed, right? So they have to stack things up against you to just crush you into oblivion. Judge Submarinian, again, he acts as if he's fair, like, you know, this guy's been on the jury for a while, you know, there was no problem. He was sitting there, he's doing his job. What went into the decision to remove this juror? They said, oh, he lied about where he's staying and this and that. Look, who stays in the same place all the time? Sometimes if you might not live with your baby mom, and you might go over there sometimes. Sometimes you might stay with your grandmother. Sometimes you might stay at a cousin's house. You might go to your aunt, and you still got your own place. Why can't you do that? So, but anyway, they used that as a reason to pluck this juror off the jury, because he was one who they felt was most likely to maybe hang the jury. So if the majority of the jurors found Diddy guilty and one juror said not guilty, that's a hung jury. And that applies to everybody in the court system. That's not just Sean P. Diddy Combs. That's for anybody. If you are on trial and you are fighting for your life, it could be a big case, it could be a small case, whatever. But if you have a jury trial and you got 12 jurors sitting in that box that are judging you, 11 of them can be against you. All you need is one. All you need is one juror to say, I'm not convinced that you're guilty of this. I'm not convinced, so I'm going to vote not guilty. And that one juror can stay solid and stay firm in his or her beliefs. Then you have an opportunity to beat the case, and then the government has the prosecutors have the opportunity to say, okay, well, let's see if we could try this again, right? But that didn't happen. So Judge Submarinian, from how I viewed it, he made a lot of decisions that were pro-prosecution. He made a few that went into the defense's favor. But as I said, sometimes you have to give the impression that you are fair, but you already know what you're thinking down the road. It's just like you cannot, thank you, Pen, please hit the like button. I appreciate those 3 likes. Sometimes you can, when you're strategizing something, you cannot necessarily tell people what you're thinking or what your plan is going to be, because you have to have the appearance of being fair, but you know down the road, hey, I'm going to go this way and I'm going to do this. So I'm going to start manipulating certain things to lean it this way. So they were definitely manipulating that jury to come back with a conviction on those RICO charges. But what happened was the government was so overzealous in prosecuting him, and they came with these charges that the jury said, man, look, this guy ain't the best guy in the world, man, but I don't think that what he did matches these charges. These charges and the punishment that they're trying to give him doesn't quite match what they're charging him with. They're charging him with some RICO stuff. This is John Gotti. This is the Genovese crime family. This is Lucky Luciano. Diddy is not that. Diddy is a music mogul who's a music executive who was a party man, drinking and smoking and doing whatever kind of substances he was doing, which many people in America do, right? The only difference between him is that he had a lot more money than other people, so he had more access. He can party more than the average person. So you could see that Judge Submarinian was making so many pro-prosecution moves because he was just trying to help them. But as the case was coming out, people started seeing that Cassie is not a victim. She's a willing participant. Yeah, she might have been a victim in the beginning, but she had so many opportunities to leave. But yet she kept coming back. She kept coming back. Even that she kept coming back and back and back. They tried to make a thing about Diddy put pressure on Cassie's mom to give him $25,000 that he had given her or something like that. And because he was upset that she had left him, he was like, I want my money back. which most men are gonna feel that way. I'm not saying most men are going to get their money back, but most men are gonna feel like that. Like, man, girl, I've been taking care of you. I've been taking care of your family. Been taking you on $500,000 shopping sprees and all of this, and you gonna go off and sleep with this one? Nah, I want my money back. Give me all my shit back. Give me everything. Most men are like that. Let's keep it real. A lot of men, I ain't gonna say most, but a lot of men are like that. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, put it in the chat. Let me know I'm wrong. If you agree, just give me a thumbs up or something. Hit the like button or put a 1 in the chat. But so what happened was they used that as this man is terrible. He put pressure on this poor girl's mom. But guess what happened? He ended up giving her the money back. That shows that went in Diddy's favor. Like, yo, Diddy don't need $25,000. Diddy probably might spend $25,000 a night in a club buying drinks or food for everyone. So that $25,000 didn't mean nothing. But the point is, the prosecution was trying to take everything he did and put some kind of sinister motive behind it, right? It was all bad. This guy is an evil human being, he's a monster, blah, blah, blah. Nobody died. No kids were taken advantage of. None of that, right? But they made it seem that way. 6 prosecutors? Come on, what do you need 6 prosecutors for? So, Diddy's attorneys did such a masterful job. Even though they didn't get the best end result, they did a masterful job of taking the prosecutions, the government's witnesses, and turning them into defense witnesses. Basically, the picture that they tried to paint of some of Diddy and some of these witnesses, like whether it was Cassie or whether it was 50 Cent baby mom, the questions that Diddy's attorneys asked them showed another side of things. Like, damn, girl, you wasn't forced. Come on now. You did this because you wanted money. Oh, you started a fight with him because you were jealous because he bought a bag for another female. Oh, you mad because he bought her a piece of jewelry and he didn't get you that same piece of jewelry. So now you have an attitude and you want to pick a fight with him and argue with him. Come on, fellas, ladies, let's be honest. You know that's how it goes, especially if you got a man that has more than one woman. And at some point, most men, and most women too, because it's easier for women to go out and, you know, it's easier for women to get a piece of action than it is for a man. Let's keep it real. Man got to have some kind of extra thing with him in order for him to go out there and attract more than one woman. You know, women is different. Y'all can go out and sleep with whoever y'all want at any given time. Men, it's a little bit different. We got to have something going. You know, the man got to have money. He got to be good looking or have status. And the less that he has of one, the more he needs of the others, right? So these women have multiple opportunities to go, but they like the lifestyle. So it comes down to the judge kept him in jail, which I think was unjust. And I think there was some bias. There was a lot of bias behind it. And I spoke about that. I don't want to keep pushing that because people say, oh, you're playing the race card, blah, 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 blah. No, but let's keep it real. Let's not act like America does not have that history. And the Indians, this guy is a descendant of that. Let's not act like that dynamic is not there. And you can tell these judges, you know, they're so inundated with cases and learning the law and studying things like that. They don't have time. They're not going out partying. They're not going to clubs or lounges and things like that. They don't have time like that. No, they're not celebrities. They have important jobs. The good judges, they have very, very important jobs. So they have to make sure that they try to make good decisions. So they don't have time for a real social life. They don't understand what it's like for a man to go out and philander. They don't understand that women can make choices on their own. They think that one man, one woman, if a woman does something or she's crying, the man must have done something to her or something like this, right? This Judge Submarinian guy, you guys can see, you looked at him. If you seen his picture, you heard him in the court. He's a judge that has an immense amount of power. But I don't think that this guy would be walking on the beach and women would be like, oh man, look at that, look at him. I don't think, and I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is, he's not that type of, he's not that type of man. You understand what I'm saying? He's not that type of man. So those type of men tend to hate more aggressive, or men who have a bit more of a swag to them, or men who have a bit more charisma, if you guys understand what I'm saying, you know? But anyway, the judge is just throwing all of these, is just making all of these, just overruling and rejecting a lot of the motions from the defense, even when the defense had legit reasons to get the case thrown out. There were people who got up on that stand who perjured themselves and told blatant lies on Diddy. Like, one girl said that Diddy held her off of a balcony. That story was blasted all over social media. People thinking, oh, we told you that Diddy is a monster. He did this, he did that. But what they didn't tell you is that when Diddy's attorney cross-examined her and asked her about this and when did it happen and this and that, the day that the girl said that it happened, Diddy happened to be all the way on the other side of the country. This girl says that it happens on the West Coast in California, and they found receipts that show that Diddy was having breakfast in New York getting ready to go to a Video Music Awards or something like that. So lies like that, blatant lies, got exposed on the stand. And the jury is sitting there looking at this. And another thing too, you guys got to understand this. This jury, there's a lot of white people on this jury, right? This is not a black jury like in the OJ case where people could say, oh, they let him off because they were black, and the Rodney King thing, they wanted to send a message. They wanted to get the black brother off. That's why they let him off. They'll say that for the OJ case. You can't say that for the Diddy case. And anybody, I don't know who's watching this, but anybody, if you're black and you're watching this, tell me if I'm lying. If a jury of a bunch of white people acquit a black man, that man is probably 199,000,000,000% innocent. For a jury full of white non-blacks to acquit a black man, that black man must be innocent. Because with the history that we know, if it's a black defendant, people tend to already believe that he is guilty. We have that stigma. You understand what I'm saying? Blacks have that stigma that we commit most of the crimes because we get prosecuted the most. It's not that we commit the most crimes. It's just that we get arrested and prosecuted the most and get sentenced to much higher sentences than anybody else. And this is not no opinion. This is something that we know to be a fact. You know, you got people who study these things and they'll tell you blacks are incarcerated at a much higher rate than anybody else. And that's a systematic thing that goes all the way back to, like, you know, 400, 500 years ago or not. But the point that I'm getting at is this jury was watched like a hawk. There's never been a jury that's been watched and followed as closely as this one, to make sure that nobody on Diddy's team say, hey, here's $50,000. This is from Sean Combs. Hey, this is $100,000. Hey, go, I left something under your car. Go look at it. Go under at 4 o'clock in the morning. There's something under your car. Go look for it. And then you go under there and there's a bag full of money. This jury was watched, so there was no taint. There was no manipulating this jury. All of that stacked up against him. When it came time for the jury to go and deliberate and make their decision, the first day, the jury said, we can't come to a unanimous decision on some of these charges. And I said, uh-oh. I said, man, the whole time though, I kept thinking they're gonna railroad Diddy. The whole time I was like, there's no way Diddy gonna beat this. You know, and remember this too. They offered him, the prosecution offered him a 10-year plea deal, and he turned it down. Whenever somebody turns down a plea deal like that, if they're facing life in prison and you offer them a 10-year deal and they turn it down, you know that that person believes that they're truly innocent of those, at least of those charges. Not saying that you innocent of bad conduct, that you're a person that's a perfect angel. Not saying that, but of these particular charges, you charging me with this. I didn't do this. Nah, I'm not taking that deal. I'll take my chances. I'll go to trial. Because she's lying, he's lying, that one is lying. Yeah, we did that, but that was your idea, and you wanted to do that day. Don't put all of this on me. That was Diddy's posture. And I'll say another thing, man. I'll tell you, Diddy is a special person, man. I hate to say this, and I'm not putting nobody on a pedestal here, but I'm gonna tell you what I saw when I saw Diddy in court. And most of the time, almost every time, I was in the overflow room, so they have the monitors where you can sit and watch what's going on in the courtroom. But I was there last year before the trial started, and the reason why I say that Diddy, there's something about Diddy, is that there's some people that are just natural born leaders. I can't really, it's hard to kind of explain, but people that are born with a certain thing. You could even say this about Donald Trump, and pretty much probably anybody that becomes like a president or a head of something, right? Some people are just like natural born leaders. They just have this thing that they're born with, this kind of, like a kind of confidence or kind of aura. And he had that even when the judge rejected his bail, and he stood up. I remember he stood up in court, and forget what the judge asked him, but the way that he stood up when he came into the courtroom, that's what it was. When he came into the courtroom and he's still wearing the prison garb. This is last year. His family was there. The way he walked into the courtroom, knowing what he was up against, but he was standing tall, head up, and he just seemed very confident. I can't really explain how it was, but he just had this confidence of knowing, like, look, I mean, I'm here to go through it. He didn't like have his head down or nothing like that. That came later. He did put his head down later because the judge started toying with him after the verdict and all that. The judge started playing with him and playing with his emotions and things like that. But before that, Diddy was just in there like, I'm like, yo, this he has this confidence as if he's gonna beat this case. Everybody, the whole world was like, yo, they gonna send you to jail. You gonna do 50 years. You done. You cooked. Diddy done. No Diddy. Everywhere you look, it was no Diddy this, baby, all that. Diddy was just there like, huh? Didn't seem bothered. He was just like, yo, I'm just going, I'm gonna go through it and I'm gonna deal with it. He had that kind of confidence, man. I don't know how to explain it, but it was an aura about him that you could see. So, anyway, when after the jury hears the prosecution finishes their case, the defense calls no witnesses. The whole world was like, what? You didn't call no witnesses? The defense is like, we really don't have to. We chopped up everybody on the stand and we done exposed all these lies. Why do we have to call anybody? This is not even a close case. And I admit, when I heard that they weren't calling any witnesses, I was like, damn, Diddy ain't even got nobody to come and speak up for him and defend him. I was like, damn, I was like, yo, these feds must have put a lot of pressure on everybody and said, you better not go up there, because if you go up there, we gonna charge you too. You going down right with him. That's what I was thinking. But it's just that his defense team was like, yo, we exposed him already. I mean, yeah, the only thing they really had was the video of Cassie, and they played that in court about 50, 100 times because they were trying to bury it in people's minds. Look at this guy, without giving the context of what happened. That they had gotten something in the room and she had taken his cell phone and left. So, you know, when you're in a toxic relationship with somebody, you like, yo, what the, you're gonna have these spats. Every man and wife goes through their thing. Everybody that's in a relationship, yeah, you ain't saying you put your hands on nobody. What he did was too much. But there have to be context. They made it seem like she was trying to escape. She was trying to escape a freak off, and he wanted her to go to the freak off. So she went to the elevator, and he ran and dragged her, threw her on the ground, and stomped her. And kicked. That's not what happened. She stole his cell phone. She took his phone. I think, like being a brat. Oh, you talking to these other bitches? You know how girls do. Oh, you talking to these other women? So she runs, and he goes after her. Security comes. She doesn't say, okay, I'm going to call the police or run. They end up staying together tonight and end up, I think it wasn't the same night or the next night. They end up going to an award show or something like that together, a premiere. So that is a lot of that never came out in, a lot of that didn't come out in the media. They buried that. The people who are report the media, it was a lot of women. So I understand people were triggered about that domestic violence video, and they was like, we don't care if he's innocent or guilty of that other stuff. We want his ass in jail, because maybe some of them have been in some relationships. And you know how women, if one woman, something happened to one woman, they all kind of like gather around her, oh my God, and this and that. So the storm was already set, you know what I mean? So he had all of that against him. So the media, and you know people like Tisa Tales, you guys watch some of these YouTubers, they never reported anything that was in Diddy's favor. They never reported about, oh, this witness lied on the stand. This person contradicted herself. Diddy's lawyer dismantled this one. It doesn't look like Diddy's really guilty. None of that got reported. So it just all looked crazy. So the jury finally gets the case. Judge sends them back to deliberate. They can't come up with a decision. They can't. They said a couple jurors were very stubborn and wouldn't go along with the rest of them. When I heard that, I thought that everybody had voted him guilty, and there was one person who was holding out saying, no, he's not guilty. But I was wrong. It was the opposite. On the big charges, from what I understand, they were saying, this ain't no RICO. This is domestic violence. This is debauchery. This is nasty. But this ain't a big crime. These are consenting adults. Nobody got forced. You never heard about nobody having a gun to nobody's head. Nobody had a knife to their throat. You didn't hear any of that. And even the male escorts that got up there, you look at their interviews, they'll tell you, look, I didn't think I was a victim, and it didn't seem like Cassie was a victim. You know, so who are you going to believe at that point? Who are you going to believe? The government, the United States government, or the witnesses, the people who are actually there, the participants, right? The jury couldn't come up with a decision. So therefore, that should have been a hung jury right there. Diddy that case should have been thrown at, should have been a hung jury. But what did the judge say? Go back and try to come up with a decision. The judge was trying to push the issue. So whoever it was that wasn't budging, the judge kept trying to push. I can only speculate. I don't know for sure, but I can only speculate based off of the actions of Judge Submarinian, his bias against the defendant, and him being pro-prosecution. I can only speculate and guess that he probably thought that they were unified in a conviction of those RICO charges, because that's the charges that the government really wanted. Those prostitution charges were just kind of put in there for like extra sauce, like just in case, for a situation like now. Just in case he beats those other charges, let's see if we can get him convicted on these charges. That's why they put those charges in there, the Mann Act, which we all know the history of the Mann Act. If you don't know, I implore and encourage any of you to go and watch a documentary called Unforgivable Blackness, The Rise and Fall of Jack Johnson. Is one of the best documentaries you'll ever see. It's pretty long, so you may not watch it all one time. But go and watch the documentary called Unforgivable Blackness and see what happened to Jack Johnson, who was the first, no, he wasn't the first, but he was the first black heavyweight champion of the modern era, which was in the 1900s, right? The early 1900s, Jack Johnson was a bad man. This was a man, and when I say bad man, I mean that in a good way. You guys who come from the hood, you know what I mean when I say, oh, that's a bad man right there. Like a Muhammad Ali. He was Muhammad Ali before Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali wanted to be like Jack Johnson, right? Jack Johnson is the first, before there was Diddy, before there was a Floyd Mayweather, before there was a Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson, there was a Jack Johnson. And the reason why I mentioned like Diddy and all them in that category, because Jack Johnson, at a time where blacks were like, a lot of blacks were still kind of in that slave mindset, and they were still like walking with their head down. When they would be walking on the sidewalk and the white person would come, the black person would put his head down and go off into the street because he didn't want to walk on the sidewalk. Jack Johnson was the type like, I walk anywhere I want and I date whoever I want. So Jack Johnson was, at that time, he attracted a lot of white women. And this was bad back in them times, because back then, if a black man even looked at a white woman like just any kind of way, or a white woman looked like she was interested in a black man, her man in her neighborhood, they were gonna go and try to hang him and kill him. But Jack Johnson was one of the first, like, yo, I don't even care. He just walked with his chest out. He was proud. So he's one of the first, if you want to look at it, Jack Johnson is like one of the first civil rights leaders for black people. Even though he wasn't like marching and stuff like that, he was the first one to say, I can do it. He was, a lot of people might say he was the Diddy of his time, Jack Johnson. Please go watch that documentary, Unforgivable Blackness. It's a great historical documentary, right? So they came out with a law for a guy like him, because Jack Johnson had a white girlfriend. He actually had a white wife at that time. Imagine this. That woman went through hell, not only with him because he was a philanderer. Jack Johnson was getting, he's the heavyweight champion. Every woman want to be with the heavyweight champion of the world. If you're the heavyweight champion, you can get almost any woman you want. You know what I mean? Not every woman, but you have a large selection. The heavyweight champion has the heavyweight champion of the world has the biggest, the most amount of options of women that he wants to date out of anybody. Maybe a musician, maybe, but the heavyweight champion is usually that #1 guy. So Jack Johnson had him a white wife, and he was dealing with prostitutes too. So they came up with a law to get him, and they came up with the Mann Act. The guy that came up with it his name was something Man. I don't remember what his first name was, but something Man. And they came up with this thing that if you bring a woman from one state to another across state lines, that's a federal crime, my man. We can get you for that. And they got him. And that was the only way they was able to stop Jack Johnson. They had to create laws for him. They had to rig the playing field. And that's the same thing that they do now. And this is what I'm saying, they did to Diddy. How often do you hear somebody getting charged with the Mann Act? Not very often at all. So they got Jack Johnson. They use that. That's like a little charge that they keep in the back pocket, and they pull it out. They can see, man, which one of these guys is moving around a little bit too much, having too much fun. Which one of these niggas is dealing with these, with one of these snow bunnies. We're going to get him. We got this charge for you, man. You took her from this state to that state, or you gave her some money, or you took some money. We don't know if you did it for real, but we think you did it. We want to get you for it. That's what the Mann Act is for. Okay, well, that's what it was created for. It really should be used like that. It should be used for real trafficking, like forced trafficking, right? So the jury couldn't come to a unanimous decision. Judge Aram Subramanian, he didn't want that. He wants this. He wanted, because in his mind, he already had the sentence. He already knew he was going to sentence him, and he was going to take joy in sentencing Diddy, which he did. I'm telling you, yesterday I was there. So he probably thought that they were going to come back guilty on the RICO. We all in the courtroom. We get the call. The jury came to a decision. You know, after a couple of days, they came to a decision. And we was like, wow, damn, that was quick. Just yesterday, it was hard to get a unanimous decision. Now it's coming. So they start reading the charges. The first guilty. The jury find Sean Combs of the RICO racketeering charge not guilty. And everybody was like, oh. So those who wanted Diddy to get not guilty, we was like, oh, shit. And I'm gonna keep it real. I was shocked because I thought he was gonna get railroaded. Even though I felt that the charges were bogus, I still thought that the jury had been manipulated enough to give the judge, because you know the way they write the instructions, I thought they would give the judge, I thought they were gonna give that a guilty verdict. And then so now the next charge, they also said not guilty. And then that's when those of us who really was like, did we because we were still trying to figure out, yo, did we hear was the last one really not guilty? And then you hear the second not guilty, and then that's when a couple of us was like, oh, damn. And then some people was like, yeah. And it was crazy. The other people, because the majority of the people that were in the courtroom and courthouse, and even on the outside, they wanted Diddy to be found guilty of the RICO charges. So they were like upset. It was crazy to see. Like, you should see the horror on their faces. They were like they didn't know what they were doing. They were about to have a mental breakdown. They came there to see him convicted, and they was about to have a mental breakdown when the jury came back not guilty. It was just, words can't even explain it. They're gonna make a movie about it one day, man. But I'll be able to tell that story about how the jury reacted, because I was not the jury, but how people, at least in the overflow room, reacted. And you can see, you look on the screen, you can see Diddy's face, because Diddy, he was there, but you can see he was like nervous. You can see he was nervous. He had on his sweater. He got a white hair, white afro, because they're not letting him, of course you can't dye your hair in prison. So he's all white, and you can see the stress. So he's got like all white hair, he got like a white afro. And I don't think, from what I hear, they're not allowing him to get like a haircut. So that's why he got the afro. And you know, sometimes you see like the white around. So you like, damn, Diddy look like an old man kind of. He, you know, physically he still look, you know, he looked kind of fit, but because his hair is all white, he looked like an old man. You know, he looked like a grandfather and whatnot. But so you can see on the screen, he kind of looked up. He was like smiling, and he just started thanking. He just started saying, look, thank you, thank you. He was saying thank you to the jury. He was like this. You could see that he was real humble. You know what I mean? He was real humble. But then another charge came, and it was guilty. The prostitution charge, the traffic, I guess like the Mann Act, they found it guilty because they said, well, you did pay, you did provide the finance. He never gave nobody the money, but his money was used to bring these guys in, you know, like the guys that, whoever that Cassie picked that she wanted to sleep with, you know, they figured that, yo, Cassie don't have her own money, so the money must have came from Diddy. So, and Diddy, you were there, you were watching it, so we're gonna at least put this on you. We saw what the video of you and Cassie. We can't let you go off on everything, so we're gonna say you trafficking. Maybe that's probation. I think that's what the jury was thinking. This is nothing, because these women are, this case is over exaggerated. They overcharged them, is what the jury basically said. Like, yo, this ain't RICO. This guy, we didn't hear nothing about murder. We didn't hear nothing about drug distribution. This ain't a RICO case. This guy is not a mobster like you guys trying to make him out to be. So when the next charge came in, it was another one that came in guilty. So it was, I think, five different counts. And then, so you got the 2 guilties and 3 not guilties. But the final not guilty came in, you know, it was like a relief off of a lot of people. The people who was hoping that he would beat the case, Or not even just that. There was some people in the courtroom, in these courtrooms, who said, you know what? I think he's gonna be found not guilty because I sat here and listened to the whole trial. This evidence ain't what they said it was. We thought we were gonna see a bunch of sex tapes with a bunch of celebrities on it. We thought we were gonna see kids getting this. We thought we were gonna see people getting SA'd. We thought we were gonna see people getting this and that. But there was none of that. The prosecution didn't produce none of that. They had years of evidence. They had years of videos, photos, phone records, but nothing that they produced showed he was a RICO or racketeering. None of his wealth came from any illicit means or illegal means. He was just a guy who started doing drugs and started drinking alcohol and was having his way with women and wasn't respecting them, was having orgies, and then whenever he felt like it, he could just say, you know what, all right, look, I ain't dealing with this, don't bother me. He's cussing them out sometimes. Just drunk behavior, drug addict behavior, erratic behavior. But they tried to paint it as if that is how this guy is all the time. But it was really when, he was messing around with that stuff. You understand what I'm saying? When he was trying to be a young man and partying a little bit too hard is when he would go off the rails, right? And engage in these kind of escapades. So anyway, those guilty verdicts came in, and then the not guilty verdicts came in. But Diddy was so appreciative to the jury. He just kept going like this, thank you, thank you. And he was putting his hands together. He was thanking the jury, and he got down, he started praying. So you could see that he was very appreciative, and he knew that he dodged the big one, right? But here's bringing back to my original point in the title. Here's why I think that the judge was biased, the judge was prejudiced. I don't know if I should say racist, because that's a tough charge, because of course he's not racist to everybody. So I can't say that, but I do think a lot of the judge put his own personal spin on things. The judge did not agree with the jury. The judge did not want that verdict. The judge did not want Diddy to be acquitted on those charges. And I'll tell you another thing. Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lawyer, said, hey, Your Honor, and Diddy did a lot of, you know what? Diddy was real humble. He was doing a little bit of, I don't want to say the word ass kissing, but he was really trying to bow down to the judge. You know what I mean? Like, Your Honor, thank you. You've done a great job. You've been fair. Even though the judge wasn't fair, Diddy was still trying to say, Judge, you've been doing a brilliant job, a great job. But we know that basically that was Diddy's way of asking for mercy. You know what I'm saying? And the judge just was like, I don't care about how good you say. I already had it that you was guilty. I'm gonna get you anyway. You still gotta come back for sentencing. So I'm gonna get you back. I'm gonna get you anyway. Just because this jury let you go, don't mean that I'm gonna let you go. That was Judge Submaranian's thing. And a lot of judges are like that. But Submaranian had it out for Diddy from the beginning. So, and if I'm wrong, somebody tell me I'm wrong. And this is how they do it. They say, no, I was following the guidelines. Section 3A, code 6928, case number this, that, United States, 1983 says that you can do this, and Congress said that. Yeah, but you can apply the law any way you want. You can finagle it. You can say, no, but this one means this. Give me another argument. Okay, well, this means, he already know which way he's going to rule, but he's just making it seem like, okay, well, give me some case law. He really don't care about the case law. He's going to find a way to have the outcome that he wants. So the jury let Diddy go essentially, almost, but they gave him no little charge because they were like, yo, we can't let you go just on everything. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to give you a clean sweep, because we want to still get you for that video or something like that. We got to get you for something. So we're going to get you with those little small charges. Maybe you get probation or something like that, which is what he should have got. If you being fair and objective, and you pay attention to everything that really went down and the lengths that the government went to charge him, and all of the stuff that they put out in the media, all of the YouTubers, all of the people in the comments, if you look at the lengths that they went to paint him as if he was Osama, like as if he was this mass killer and all of this kind of stuff, you realize that it all was like a house of sand, a house of cards. It just kind of like fell, you know? And it just, the charges didn't match up to the reality. And the judge says this. He says, hey, Mr. Combs, oh, no. Mark Agnifilo says, this is Diddy's lead attorney. He says, Your Honor, you know, with the acquittal of these serious charges, we would ask that Mr. Combs be allowed to go home on bail. We're proposing that we can put up $1 million bail just to ensure maybe he got house arrest or something like that. You can let him go. These charges, he's not a threat to anybody. He's not a threat to society. The jury just said so, right? Agnifilo, man, I would say this. This guy is a very professional attorney. He's a very stoic. He's a very straight type of guy, you know. And from what I understand, he used to be a prosecutor, so they tend not to be they tend not to have much emotion. These kind of attorneys, you have some attorneys who are just like very, he's clever, he's very clever, but they're very straight is kind of like what I want to say, right? Then you have some attorneys who have a bit more emotion, you know, who put a lot of emotion. So Agnifilo asked, I think he kind of asked and offered in a way that he didn't want to like ruffle any feathers. You know what I mean? He didn't want to ruffle any feathers. So he asked kind of the judge, you know, in a nice way. It wasn't too strong, and the judge looked at Diddy, and he said, hey, Mr. Combs, you know, I'm sure you would like to go home today, right? Wouldn't you? And then Puff was like, yeah. And everybody was like, oh, he probably gonna come home, for the judge to even consider it. The judge said, okay, I'm gonna go back, and we're gonna take a break and come back. So everybody's thinking like, oh, you know what I mean? He just beat this case. He just beat the big charges. The judge gonna let him come home. That's why you saw the video of his sons celebrating the way they were. They were just feeling good. They were like, oh man, dad is coming home and this and that, because that's what it felt like. And you go on the outside of the courthouse, it went from no Diddy, fuck Diddy, to people, a lot of people celebrating. There was a lot of people upset. No, let me tell you this. Most people were upset because they wanted to see that conviction. They had gotten inundated and overwhelmed by all of that propaganda that he was guilty, he was this monster, he was the worst man that ever lived. So in their minds, they were like, they wanted him to be guilty. And then there were some people who, I understand, maybe they were victims of abuse. There were some people out there who were victims of abuse, so they look at him like he represents their abuser, you know? And there were some people who probably, some guys who they grew up seeing their moms being abused, so those kind of people were against them. And there's guys who have daughters too, and they're like, okay, man, I wouldn't want nobody. So that video, the Cassie video, to them is just the end all be all. They don't care about anything else. They're like, we don't care if he gets 100 years or this and that. They don't care that the United States government overcharged him. They don't care that the United States government, you said, yeah, just going to say, keep it real. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it real. So they don't care that the United States government abused their authority, the prosecutors, they overcharged him. They did too much. They don't want to say that. They don't want to say, hey, this domestic violence issue should have been at state court. Diddy should be doing probation or some time in state pen or something like that. The government, the United States government, that's supposed to be protecting the country. There's people, you got Jeffrey Epstein, you got the guy from Abercrombie and Fitch. These are real monsters. Diddy with the stuff that came out about Diddy was nowhere near that, but Epstein had a bail. The guy, the CEO from Abercrombie and Fitch got a bail. Vince McMahon had crazy serious charges. He was defecating on a woman's head or on her mouth or something crazy like that. They said that Vince McMahon hired this chick and was defecating in her mouth, and that case quietly went away. I'm sure he must have paid. How come we don't hear about that? These guys did, if they didn't do what Diddy did, they did worse than that, but they were walking around on bail. What is the difference between them and Diddy? The only thing that I can point to is the skin color. That's it. Because if you look at the accusations, they're somewhere maybe in the same ballpark. But how come they can be out on bail? That's why I say Submarinian was biased, you know? And it's not just him, it's the whole prosecution. So I'm not gonna put all of that on just the judge. It's the government, period. It's just the American way. They don't wanna see a successful black man rise up because it inspires others. And even Agnifilo said that. So don't just be like, oh man, it's because you're black, you're saying that, you're playing the race card. Mark Agnifilo got on the TV and said that, you know what I mean? He said, look, I think it's something with, they trying to take down a successful black man. And those of you who are being honest, come on now, let's keep it real. Be honest with the history of America. You can't say that America enjoys to see a black man come from nothing and supersede and become influential, you know, and get power. Look at the things that they say about just anybody, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to get into everything, but you guys know what I'm saying. I'm not just making this up. I have reasons for all I'm saying. You guys know I'm telling the truth. But this was a witch hunt. This was a witch hunt. And the judge comes back after the break. We all think that we're going to see Diddy come out of the gold building because they say, you know, nobody comes out of that building. You go in there, you don't come out. They didn't want him to come out looking like a hero. Imagine if he would have came out and on bail. Do you understand what that would have looked like? A black man got charged with RICO racketeering against the United States government and won. That is like, they couldn't allow that. They couldn't allow that. So even if Submarinian, let's say Submarinian just was like, yo, the guidelines say I can allow him to go. Somebody could have put up the call and said, no, you can't let him go. He's still a danger to society. And Submarinian came back because he already knew that he wanted to keep him. He said, yeah, so I'm not convinced that, you're not a danger to society, so bail is denied. What? You could have told him that hours ago when you asked him, hey, Mr. Combs, I'm sure you'd like to go home, wouldn't you? He did that like he really played that game. That was an evil thing to do, Judge Submarinian. I know you well within your power to do it. And you could probably say, you could flip that around and say, no, what he did was wrong. And we saw the video. I get that. So I'll give you that. But the jury said, we don't find him guilty of these serious charges. We think that these women were complicit. Also, they were consenting adults. And excuse me. So, you know, Submarinian already had his mind made up. Damn, excuse me. He had his mind made up from before the trial started. He just had to keep it. But the defense kept throwing monkey wrenches in the plan. The prosecution and all that, it was supposed to look like the all-American heroes, the women standing up for women's rights, and this is the biggest domestic violence case of all time, and he's the biggest criminal. They spent over $20 million prosecuting this case, and all it turned out to be was a man paying for prostitutes. Come on, let's be real. Anybody in here, if you're from the United States of America, you know in every major city there's an area you can go and find a prostitute if you really wanted to, if you're living that life. You know how many people, you ever watch, there used to be a show called Cops and all this kind of stuff. You could watch and you see them setting up stings around prostitution areas all the times, and people getting caught with these prostitutes. Every major city in America, there's prostitution going on right now. How many of these people you know are facing federal charges for hiring escorts? How many people face federal charges for hiring escorts? If somebody knows, put that in the chat for me. I want to know if you know of anybody who has faced 20 years for spending their money on a prostitute. Now, as far as I know, you know, a prostitute will get arrested or escort to get arrested. He or she might spend a night in jail or a weekend in jail. If they have an extensive history, they might have to spend a couple weeks or something like that in jail. But I never heard of nobody getting a year or years in prison for hiring escorts or prostitutes. Please put it in the chat if you know of anybody who's gotten years, whether it's the escort or the prostitute or what they call a John or a trick, or let me know if you know anybody, or if you heard of any story of somebody getting that amount of time. And if you have, then I could say, oh, okay, well, what they did to Diddy is fair, you know? But I'm just calling it out how I see it. It was a biased and malicious prosecution. And you have to, if you were in the courtroom or you were at the court and you see everything, you have visually, you can see that the table that had the prosecutors, is the table with the prosecution is in front of the table of the defense. So the defense is in the back, the prosecutors it was 6 white women. And let me tell you about these particular, these kind of, I don't know, man. I won't go that far, but these, from what I heard, these kind of women, they look like man haters. You know those type of women who just hate men, that just hate everything about men, and anything that happens, they say, oh, the man and this and the man that. They look like that and they acted like that. They were ferocious, and it just looks like they go around just hating men for everything. And I don't know. I heard that one of them or a couple of them might be, you know, she might be dealing with women. She doesn't like men. She only, she dates men, women or something like that. I don't know how true that is. But if any of them are married to men, I don't know. I'm gonna stay out of that. But anyway, these women look like they just hate men, and they take joy out of trying to destroy this man and destroy this black man, because that's what they were raised to do. They were raised to think that way, you know? And that's what they did. So the judge wanted to help them because he was on their side the whole time. And they just suffered a humiliating defeat in front of the world in the biggest case in United States history, which really shouldn't have been the biggest case of the United States history, but it's the most publicized case in United States history. This black guy won. You know how much of a defeat that looks like in the eyes of just everybody, you know, the government, it like this, all of that stuff you put against him, you stacked the jury, you even altered the jury, and the jury still said not guilty on these major charges, these charges that you were trying to send him away from life. You're trying to take away the man's hard work, all of the property that he had that he was going to leave for his kids. You were going to say that it was gotten through ill-gotten means, and you were going to confiscate all of that. And the jury said no. It was a jury of, from what I understand, 8 men, 4 women, you know. And this wasn't a split jury. This was a unanimous decision of not guilty on these big charges. That was a huge defeat. And the judge was just like, don't worry, I'm gonna help y'all. Y'all lost. I know this nigga he got one over. We don't know how he did it, but they voted. I tried to make the jury instructions to go in a way for them to find him guilty, but the jury bucked. I don't know what happened. So I think too, Submarinian probably felt like, man, I gave them the instruction that they were supposed to find him guilty. So that way I could have gave him the max. So I don't know what I did. So whoever gave him the instructions, or if he came up with the instructions, it just didn't work. So they were like, don't worry, we got one more shot at getting him during sentencing. So, you know, and then Trump came through and fired Maureen Comey. So I think that, you know, there's a couple ways that you can look at that, right? Because let's keep it real. At one point, Diddy and Trump, you know, were on good terms. Maybe they weren't best of friends where they hung out all the time, but there's pictures of Diddy and Trump hanging out that looked like they were having a good time. Diddy was next to Melania, you know, they knew him. They probably was like, yo, we like this dude. This Trump, look, and people, I don't know what happened to Trump, but back in the day, man, black people used to like Trump, you know what I mean? Trump used to kind of be like that guy, like he had some swag, you know what I mean? He was cool. Before he became political, Trump was hanging out. You would see him in pictures with Don King. You would see him in pictures with Mike Tyson. Lennox Lewis was on his show. Trump used to have black people in his orbit, and he used to be around that, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he was around just everybody, the average person, but those who were up there, the elites, Trump used to be around that, you know? So he was somebody that at least the hip-hop community really liked Donald Trump. I'm gonna say that. The hip-hop community, back before Donald Trump became, got political and he started talking all that crap about Obama, because you got to know that a lot of black people, even though they didn't necessarily agree with everything Obama did or said, a lot of black people felt some kind of sentiment with him because he was the first that had some black DNA in him, at least that looked, he had black features, you know, regardless of how his mind thought or how he was raised. He had a little bit of swag to him. He had some charisma to him. So black people really liked Obama. And the man could really talk. So when Donald Trump was like, Obama wasn't born in the US and this and that, a lot of black people was like, come on, man, why are you trying to tear the man down? So in a lot of black people's mind, they started seeing Donald Trump as one of those people, one of those like racist people that was back in the 40s and the 30s and stuff like that, because of how he was attacking Obama and telling lies and stuff like that. So I think that also kind of caused a little bit of a rift between the relationship or the friendship that Diddy and Trump had, because Trump was trying to become president, right? Diddy's a black man who is like a 99% chance that he could never go into politics and become a politician like that, but he could become supremely influential in other areas. But Trump was going for the presidency, so Trump had to secure his base, which is, of course, the middle America, mostly the white people. If you want to become president, you don't need black support, because there's not enough black voters to like really put you there. You know what I mean? You can go after the blacks at some point, because maybe it gives you a little bit of help to edge over. If it's two white people running for president, both of them are fighting for their base, but then they're going to try to get the minorities like that. But Trump was just like, no, I don't need that. I found my base right here. I'm going to say what they like me to say, and I'm going to focus on that. This is MAGA. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that caused a rift with, Diddy and Trump wasn't as cool as they used to be, right? I don't know how it was in Trump's mind, but it just seemed that way, based off of the stuff I seen online. Anyway, Trump fires Maureen Comey after she just lost the Diddy case. So she just looked like she got all kind of egg on her face. You know what I mean? She looked like she got just like, oh my God, I just prosecuted this man. We gave it everything we got, and we lost the big charges. We lost on the big part. And then now I just lost my job. Everything just looked bad for her. So now the prosecution is looking real bad. The only hope that they got now is the judge. So comes to the sentencing, and yesterday you're like, damn, the way that the prosecution was The way that the prosecution was still going after Diddy. You're like, damn, these people are not respecting the jury's decision. These people don't care about what they heard on the stand. They have an objective. Their objective is to destroy, 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 destroy. That's it. And they went up there yesterday and they spoke all of this. And I'm thinking like, damn, they were gonna say, look, Your Honor, you know, Mr. Combs beat the bigger charges, we recommend maybe 5 years or something like that. We think a 5-year sentence would be good or something like that. I'm thinking that you would think that they would say that and they would go along with, they would respect the jury. Nope. They were still coming. They were still combing through the case. It was almost like they were trying to comb the case again. So they were putting all this stuff out there. Really, they were saying it so that the court reporter puts it in the records, right? They used the language that they used was the most intense language that they could use. He was a demonstrably, incredibly vile. It was heinous. They were making it seem like it was a bloodbath or something like that, like Diddy committed some war crimes, right? But this was just extra juice for the judge to put in his basket because the judge already knew. But you think they're going to tell him like maybe 5 years? Nope. They said 11 years. And the reason why I believe they said 11 years is because, remember, they offered him 10. And he declined the 10. So now they have to say we have to go above what we offered him because he beat us on a big charge. So now we just got to throw everything at him, go up as high as we can go, right? So they just went after him. And then Diddy got this one lawyer, this young boy, man. He look young. I don't know how young he is, but he looked young to me. This kid looked like he's in his 20s or something like this. I think his name is Briscoe. Jason Briscoe. This kid, man, I give this kid, and I told him yesterday too, this young lawyer that Diddy has, this young kid, man, he gets up there and it's like he has like an encyclopedia of information in his head that he's been thinking, that he's been storing. Like he did some serious research and he starts slicing up everything that the prosecution was trying to put against Diddy for the sentencing. This like prior cases that have had similar, there was other defendants who had got big time and big sentences. They tried to say, Your Honor, you need to give Mr. Combs this 11 years because this person over here got this much time for this crime and this person got that. So it's been done before. He's not a special case. We're not treating him any differently than we treated these two. But this kid, Jason Briscoe, I don't want to mess his name up. He went up there and he sliced apart everything that the prosecution put. It's like he had a razor blade. Like everything they said, I don't know if he had it from memory, but everything he said, he just like sliced it up. He just like sliced it up. And just when I thought, I was like, yo, Diddy, I was like, yo, they about to give Diddy like, the judge about to give Diddy like 15 years. I was thinking that because of how the prosecution was talking. Jason Briscoe sliced it up. And I was like, damn. I was like, Diddy might get time served the way that this defense team came prepared. Then Nicole Westmoreland gets up there. She gives a real deep and powerful, emotional statement on behalf of Diddy. It was so emotional that she was having, she was real emotional. A lot of people in this gave her a hard time. Why is she crying? And she was, because she was overcome with emotion, because for her, I think Diddy was not just a client. Diddy was somebody that inspired her, because from what she said, Diddy was somebody who inspired her in her younger years when she said she was a young lawyer and she had just came up. She went to a conference or something and Diddy happened to be there. He was like a surprise speaker and he said some stuff that truly inspired her. So he meant something to her before she even met him. So her meeting him and interacting with him, and if you talk to everybody that's been around Diddy, they all say the same thing, like, yo, he just inspires people to be better. He inspires everybody. You hear his attorneys, the way his attorneys speak about him. They don't talk about him like the average client. They talk about him like as if they admire him. You know, his attorneys actually admire him because they like, damn, you did that with your life. You did all of this and all of that. So they're truly impressed because this is not the average client. Let's be honest. It's not the average client, you know. So, oh, another thing too, a reason why they wanted to punish Diddy is because, you know, when he got acquitted of those big charges, the word is that when he went back to the jail, the Brooklyn MDC, the federal holding jail, the inmates gave him a round of applause. Like he just became like a folklore, like a hero after he won that case because nobody beats the feds. So he got a round of applause, they say. So I think that also pissed off the judge. But that's not Diddy's fault that people clapped for him and people cheered for him. He's just trying to defend his life. So anyway, you know, when you got stuff like that, they're like, okay, we're gonna show you. So you know, so yeah, Nicole Westmoreland gave a great speech, and then his kids got up there, and man, it was so emotional, man. Like you have to just be a heartless man, which I understand a judge has to be that way. Judges have to be hard, but I mean, you have to be a soulless, heartless man not to consider what Diddy's kids got up there and say, and they had tears in their eyes saying, oh man, you know, Your Honor, when the girl spoke, Your Honor, this is the only parent we got. We lost our mother. Our dad is everything to us. Please let us have our dad back. We love him. He's a good man, and we can see that he's changed in a lot of ways since he's been in jail. He's a good man. You know, Your Honor, please let us get him back. And you know, the judge didn't really care what they had to say because he already had it in his mind. But you have to just be a heartless piece of crap to be in that courtroom and not feel something. You know what I'm saying? When you heard those kids talk, even if you were on the prosecution side, you had to feel something. You know, they poured their heart out. This kid Quincy, people give this kid Quincy Combs a hard time because, you know, his father, they say his biological father is this guy, the singer, and Diddy raised Quincy from a young kid. And this guy Quincy gets up there, he speaks, he says, hey, Your Honor, he says, I'm the oldest son of Sean Combs, and I don't care. He said, and regardless, this is my father. This is the only father I know. I love this man. And when he said that, you know, in the overflow room, you got a bunch of these new age people who are all on the social media. Oh, why are you supporting Diddy? He's not even your real father, and blah, blah. Quincy put an end to all of that yesterday. You know, Quincy got up there and said, this is my father. Please let this man come home. That man spoke. End of discussion. All you people on social media who were doing all of this trolling and all this and trying to break up a family, yo, this man Diddy raised a bunch of kids that ain't even his biologically, and they love him like that. So that shows that the man got some good in him. You know what I mean? So, cause you know how many kids got step parents and they hate, and their step parents are bad to them, or they can't stand their step parents. Their step parents molested them and all of that, or they abused them. You know what I mean? You can't get a response out of somebody like that unless you were really good to that person. You know what I'm saying? So if you a step parent, man, you know, treat them kids right. You know, they'll be there for you. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes maybe they even be there more for you than your real kids. But anyway, so they spoke, and then, you know, Brian Steele got up there. This is Brian Steele from the Young Thug trial, the YSL trial. Brian Steele is another one, man. This guy, Brian Steele is very charismatic. He's a very charismatic guy. He's just very charismatic. The whole team's it just has something about them, but still got a bit of, he's very charismatic, you know, and he's a master in that courtroom too. All of them are. but all of them are masters in their own different ways. My bad, Anthony France. I missed that comment. But yeah, Brian Still got up there and spoke, and they played a video showing all of the things that Diddy had done in the past. They made a, you guys forget that Diddy donated millions of dollars to people, to impoverished people. Diddy built like 3 schools. This is stuff that I didn't even know. I knew he built a school. I didn't know he built 3 schools. Diddy sent countless people to college that didn't have tuition. Diddy's created businesses and gave jobs to everybody. I mean, Diddy created jobs where if you were from Harvard, one of these Ivy League schools, you could work for Diddy. If you just came out of jail and didn't have nothing, and he knew, and you could work for Diddy. I don't want to say empire, but his portfolio of businesses that he built, they showed that like he really gave a lot of people opportunities, people who didn't have maybe the requirements to get into certain other companies. He was like, no, you can come work at Bad Boy. You could work here. As long as you could do the job, you could work. So this guy has put people in position to make a lot of money. He paid a lot of people. He provided a lot of jobs, man. Diddy provided a lot of jobs for people, and they said so too, and they showed that, he, like I said, he did the charity, he did the marathon. Who remembers when he ran that marathon and raised all that money for the New York City schools? So they showed these videos of all of these good things that he did to say, like, look, the prosecution, y'all promoting him and show him as a monster. What's up, Exotic? Y'all painting this guy as a monster, but y'all forget that all of this good he's done. And you can't find too many people in this world who have done that much. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about just like making music or running a record label. A lot of people do those things, but to do all of that, there's very small amount of people who have done all of that philanthropy, So let's say that a couple people got hurt, right? 5 people got hurt. But then you can look at about 500 people that he helped. You know what I mean? That doesn't negate people who got hurt. It could have been, I don't know. I'm not going to say how they got hurt. I'm just using this as an example, right? So he got a chance to see all of the good that he did to counter the prosecution. The only thing that the prosecution have as far as videos is the Cassie video, that hotel video. That's the only thing that they had. So they had to play it 10 million times to put it in people's minds to make this, see, he's bad, he's bad, he's bad, he's a monster, he's a monster, he's a monster. But then the defense was able to show, look, this man got 35 years worth of good, and y'all taking this one small part of his life, and y'all gonna make this define all of that, outshine all of that. So after they showed all this, and then Mark Agnifilo got up there and spoke. Xavier Donaldson got up there and spoke. There was also a reverend who came and spoke for on Diddy's behalf too. And this guy gave a very good, powerful speech. It was only about 2 minutes, but this guy was like, Your Honor, we recognize that Sean has had some issues in the past, but we know Sean. We know the real Sean. And we know that this thing that he's gone through, his incarceration, has changed him. He's a clean man. He has a clear head. He's been focused. And we know what kind of good he can do. And he can do more good outside than he can inside. So Your Honor, we're asking that you release him to us today so that we can continue to be an extension of your court, to make sure that he's doing the right things, to make sure that he's staying focused. And we can assure you, because we know this man, that if he ever comes before your court again, it's going to be to tell you thank you, Your Honor, to say something good. And this guy, man, he spoke up really well for him. And I'm like, man, they got to release Diddy after all of this. They have to release him, And Because nobody in history, I guarantee you, nobody has had this many people come and speak on their behalf and say all this good stuff. They had a ex-felon who was in the federal system who came out and he changed his life. And now he's doing a lot of great work in the community, great work in the United States, helping people who got out of prison. And he said that, man, the things that Diddy has done while he's been incarcerated, he's done more good in the short amount of time that he's been in there than some people have done in a whole lifetime. He's changed like a little bit of the culture in that jail that he's in right now. There used to be a lot of gang fights and gang separations. The Bloods on this side, the Crips over here, the whites in this group and this and that. Diddy ended up, so many people were coming up to him in the prison asking, hey man, how did you become successful? What did you do? What was the your blueprint to you getting there? And Diddy would tell them, and he got tired. He was like, man, every time somebody comes up to him, I'm repeating the same things. So he said, look, all right, I'm gonna teach a class. But the condition of the class is that the Bloods and the Crips and all of these, the Aryans and all that, you all gotta come into the class together. Everybody gotta be in this class together instead of me going to this group and that group and this group and teach. Everybody comes to the class and I'll teach you some business. So, because he figured out that most of the people that are locked up in there, the main problem is that they don't have the education to get what they're trying to get. So anyway, one of the inmates started calling this class Free Game with Diddy. And when you heard about it out on the media, it starts saying, what? Free Game with Diddy? Who does he think he is? Excuse me. Who does he think he is to go in the jail like he's having a good time, teaching the class like he's having a good? That's not what it was. The inmates were coming up to him asking him questions. Yes, he did have an incident we heard about yesterday. Excuse me. One of the inmates, somebody did try to attack Diddy with a knife. And I think they said one of the guards intervened and saved him because, you know, it looked bad. The guy was coming at him. So we do know that Diddy, you know, he's, for the most part, it seems like he has people around him looking out for him. But there are a few people who are in there who are trying him, and somebody did try to kill him. So, you know, it's definitely not an easy road that he has in there. So the judge hears all of this, and the judge said, okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Everybody go and take a break. I'll come back with my sentence. And a lot of people are thinking, after we just heard all of the defense and the prosecution tried to come back with a rebuttal, Diddy stands up. The judge allows Diddy to address the court. Man, I will tell you, this guy stands up and gives a real, genuine, from the heart speech. And I don't even know if you could really call it a speech. It's supposed to be a statement. But that moment that he took to say what he needed to say, he apologized to everyone. He said, I apologize to Cassie and I apologize to Jane for any hurt or trauma that I've caused. You know, and he didn't want to be on there too much because, to be honest, in his mind too, he probably know that all of it is not his fault, but he was taking it as if, hey, nobody wants to hear your side. Nobody wants to hear, make you look like the victim here. But really, it kind of looked like he was the victim of the United States, you know. And he turned, he apologized to his mother. He said, look, Ma, he said, Mommy, I'm sorry, you know, for disappointing you, because you didn't raise me like this. You raised me to be better than this. You know, you raised me to be a good young man. And Mom, I'm sorry I let you down. And he and you could see he was crying. So when Diddy said this is all, I think this is what everybody wanted from him. They wanted to see a humble Diddy, but they also wanted to see him humiliated. This is, you could see, I mean, of course you could tell that earlier, but you could really see in the courtroom with all of the people that showed up to the court every day, none of them were there to actually see a fair trial. Nobody that went to the court was there to hear Diddy's side of things. They were all there to just see Diddy be destroyed and humiliated. About 90% of the people, I would say, maybe 80 to 90% of the people who were showing up there were there to see him destroyed and humiliated. But still, and I'm sure it was a little bit, yeah, the judge definitely, I'll get to that in a second. But he was as humble as you can be. And he said, look, I'm not a larger than life figure. I'm not a larger than life guy. I'm just a man. You know, I'm a man who's made a lot of mistakes. You know, I was doing, you know, there was at a time that I just lost my way, and now I've lost everything. I'm humbled. I'm humiliated. I've lost my reputation. I've lost all my businesses. You know, he was very humble. So, you know, after he gives his speech, maybe it's about a minute, 2 minutes, maybe about 2 minutes long, and he sits down, the judge says, okay, I'll take a 5-minute break. You can tell the judge just didn't give a damn. Submarinian didn't give a damn. But, because he had it in his mind already. So, Diddy, so he goes back and he comes out and he starts reading off his report because he already had the thing written up. I think, is my belief, that Submarinian had a real high sentence for Diddy. He did. But after all of this, the people who came up and spoke on his behalf and talked about how much Diddy is meant to a lot of people, and he's meant to the community, he's meant to the culture, he's meant to hip hop, he's meant to the world, you know. I think that whoever was the decision maker, if it wasn't Submarinian and it was, some people say it was somebody behind him put in a call, I think whatever number that they were going to give him, they lowered it. And they said, okay, 50 months, you know, because when he came back, he was like, look, you know, Mr. Combs, I've seen that you've done all of this work in the community. Your community looks up to you. Your family wants to see you, this and that. And he was kind of like imitating one of Diddy's kids. Your son Christian said, yeah, my pops is my hero, this and that. Like, he was kind of like, it sounded like he was like mocking him, you know, that's what it sounded like. So, you know, I'm like, damn, man, this dude, okay, he's doing it like that. So, and he says, and all of these people, it was good. I'm glad that they spoke up to you, spoke up for you. However, I have to take into consideration this and this, that count, and this and that, and prior bad act, not prior bad acts, acquitted, what do they call it, acquitted conduct, and all of the things that I've heard, and this and that. And you told Jane to suck this dick or don't bother me, and fuck you, bitch, and all that. And he, like, the judge is saying that, and then we all can see like, oh shit, like the judge was just like going off. Said, dang, bro, you've been able to talk clearly for a long time. Get that law to go. Thank you, man. Yo, I can't believe it's this long, man. This shit only feel like 45 minutes. But okay, appreciate that too, Pen. So Diddy, so the judge starts saying, he starts going, he was like, but he said, Mr. Combs, I was here in the courtroom and I heard everything. I heard everything. And you did this and you did that. The abuse and the coercion, and I don't want to hear anything about, you know, this was consenting adults and this and that like that. I'm paraphrasing what the judge was saying. So you just knew he had vitriol, and he was just like trying to rip him apart, like forget everything you just said. I don't care what you just said about, and I don't care about all that good, but you know, maybe it does come into play here. So I sentenced you to 50 months and 5 years supervised supervision or something like this. So we like, huh? So because Diddy was humble. He was like, Your Honor, please, I beg you for mercy. Like, he was begging. This is what I think they really want. He was begging. Like, the only thing he didn't do was like bow down and get on his knees and like say, Your Honor. I mean, what else could he do? But as far as verbally, Diddy was basically like, yo, Your Honor, I beg you for mercy, you know, and so let me go home and be a better man, because I will never put my hands on anybody ever again. I'm just a better man. I will never go back to how I was. Like, I'm a changed man, you know, and I just want to be there for my kids and my mother, and take care of my family, you know, and just be a good member of society. The judge wasn't trying to hear it. So, but then at the end, the judge was like Mr. Combs, you know, the things that you've done is just reprehensible, and, you know, but there's light at the end of the tunnel for you. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get out someday. And then that, you know, so basically, and then the judge, and then this is where I thought that was kind of a little bit, I mean, it's the judge. You can do whatever you want in his own courtroom. He says, Miss Ventura and Jane Doe, I want you to know that I heard you. I heard your cries. The world has heard what you've said. You've spoken up for many victims and women of abuse around the world. Like, he just made it like this crusade type of thing. And I understand you have to give them the thing because they're considered victims, but you can tell that this guy, Submarinian, was not happy that the jury acquitted him on those major charges, which is why he came around and he gave 4 years for prostitution charges that nobody gets that amount of time for. Domestic violence and abuse, nobody gets that amount of time for. Especially for somebody when the so-called victims did not call the police. You know, they never pressed charges, and it seemed like they didn't even want to press charges. But they got caught up in the whole investigation and the takedown of Diddy that they had to just play it out. They had to go along with it. So I'll say that to say this. The reason why I did this video is because I've watched these cases, you know, and I've watched some cases, and I've been following this one from the beginning, from even before it started. And it definitely was a malicious prosecution. It was a racial prosecution, and the judge was biased, and he was just an extra juror. I mean, he made himself a whole nother jury, and clearly he had it out for Diddy from the beginning. So nobody else would speak on that, and I know it could be some backlash to me or whatever, but I'm just calling it is what it is, man. This judge, this judge wasn't right. This judge wasn't right, and I think there's gonna be a, you know, of course his defense team is gonna appeal, but you know, even appeals take a long time. It ain't like, okay, we appeal and we found the judge made this mistake or that mistake. Because don't get me wrong, look, this judge, Submarinian, he's a very, very sharp guy. Very, very sharp mind. Legally, this guy is very sharp, quick. You know what I'm saying? He's very quick, and he processes information really quickly. I was like, damn, you know? Like, I was sitting there thinking like, man, I wonder if I ever applied myself, could I get in a position like that? But then I was like, man, that take a lot of reading, just all the time reading, because I was like, you got to read a lot of paperwork and a lot of letters when you're a judge, a federal judge like that. And I don't know, I'll probably get distracted into doing something else. But anyway, yeah, so the guy is a very sharp guy. He's just biased and prejudiced, you know? And what I think he did, I think that sentence, in my opinion, it was lower. It was lower than what I expected him to give, but I still think it was higher than necessary. You know? So that's all I wanted to say, man, on this video, man. I appreciate y'all for being in here with me, man. Oh man, I appreciate the likes, man, the people that was in here. And I hope that I said something for people to either look into or learn. You know, I don't know if, you know, the judge is going to be investigated. I don't even know if you can investigate. Like, what is there to really find? You know, the only thing you can probably look through is to see some of the decisions that he made, to see if some of his rulings were just overboard. But I really would like to see, I mean, I want to see if those two convictions could be overturned. But he's gonna need like some experts to see if there were any mistakes made during the trial. It could have been during jury selection, it could have been this or that. But there has to be something, you know. He has Alexandra Shapiro, which is she's a legendary appellate lawyer, and she was there from the beginning to end, keeping the track of everything, kind of like Alan Dershowitz was in the OJ case. Alan, I don't know if you people ever looked into the OJ case, and if you ever looked at all of the individuals that was on his defense team. I don't mean just Robert Shapiro and Johnny Cochran, because there was a whole bunch of lawyers. I think OJ had like 8, 9 lawyers on his squad too. But Alan Dershowitz was one of them. And Alan Dershowitz is another guy who has a very he's a very sharp mind too. And he was there just in case if OJ would have got found guilty in that first trial. Alan Dershowitz was there to keep the records and see what issues that warranted a ground for that. If there was anything that warranted an appeal, like whatever you can find that you can present to an appellate judge and get something overturned. So that's what Alexandra Shapiro was for Puff. Even though you didn't hear necessarily a whole lot from her, because she's real quiet. She really does her work. She's really paying attention, and she's always writing things down, you know? So Alexandra Shapiro probably got like a stack of papers and books that she found things. Oh, this person lied, and Your Honor didn't charge them with perjury, or this person this, and this person got immunity, and they told lies. If a person gets immunity, they can go up on the stand and say you did anything, and they'll never be charged. And it doesn't even look like they'll be charged with perjury, which is an absolute shame and a tragedy, because you can send somebody to prison for the rest of their life, even if the person didn't do the crime that they were charged with, all because somebody got on the stand and lied, which we know has happened time after time after time over the last couple centuries, especially when the defendant has been of Black descent. This is not something that I'm just coming up with. It's not the race card. This is known facts. You know, you can check. If you don't believe me, go and check the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project that was created by Barry Scheck and Peter Newfield, that was designed to help to free innocent people from prison who didn't have money for a good attorney, and they didn't have an attorney who understood DNA analysis. Alan Dershowitz and Barry Scheck, probably no other lawyers in America know more about DNA evidence than them. So I implore anybody to go and check out the Innocence Project if you can. If you believe that you hate injustice, you hate that for people to get locked up for crimes that they didn't commit, you can go to the Innocence Project's website and you can make a small donation. It could be like $5. Anything, any small amount helps to go towards the legal fees to help somebody who's incarcerated, who doesn't have enough money to put up a defense. So please, if you get an opportunity, to type in the Innocence Project and go to that website. And yeah, man, if you get the opportunity, leave a little small donation or something. Or if you know somebody who's in jail, who's incarcerated, and you believe them to be innocent and the DNA can help them, or a better attorney, tell them about the Innocence Project, you know? But anyway, that's my whole take on the Diddy case and this biased judge who is just an extension of the prosecution. You know, these prosecutors, I look at them as like an evil lot. I really do. I mean, maybe that is a bit of maybe some strong language, but I got the sense that they weren't there to just do anything good, to do the right thing. Their whole purpose was just to tear the man down. You know what I mean? This case could have been resolved in state court. There was no need to send the CIA and the FBI and the Homeland Security to crash through the man's house and put guns to his kid's head. And you only did that because the man is because he's black. If he was white, you guys know you wouldn't have done that because you've never done it before. I've never seen that on the internet, never seen it on the news where Homeland Security ran in and put guns to a white man's head or a white man's kids' heads. Never seen that. So, you know, nobody can tell me that this racism ain't still alive in America. It's alive and well, and we see it here in the Diddy case. We've seen it in the Cosby case too. You know, so America is still America. But I appreciate y'all for checking in, man. All right.